What if I told you that Halo not only made it to consoles, but to arcade machines? I know, pretty weird. In this video, I'm reviewing an interesting part of Halo history, of Halo's first ever arcade game, Halo Fireteam Raven. Cue the epic intro. This game was developed in collaboration with 343, Raw Thrills, and Play Mechanics. This arcade was released to the public in 2018 and was shown in many places, at least near me personally. And most of the time these machines are found in pretty well established arcade places, at least near me. Now, does Halo actually make an arcade game, and is it actually pretty good? And did it make a big enough splash like the OG Halo CE game did? Let's find out. The story of this arcade game actually takes place during the events of Halo Combat Evolved, and it follows a team of ODSTs, Fireteam Raven, which consists of Ethan, Tactics, Marcus, Recon, Victor, Heavy Weapons, and Ava, Explosives. The ODSTs in the beginning of the game are tasked with defending the Pillar of Autumn, like the beginning of CE when it's getting attacked by the Covenant. After doing this, Keyes, like in the OG game, orders the evacuation of the ship, and the ODSTs escape in their classic drop pods. They land on the Halo ring and make their way to the crash site of the Pillar of Autumn to defend it from Covenant forces. Then they make their way to the famous Alpha base, which was actually mentioned in Halo the Flood. Pretty decent book if I have to recommend it. They defend the base from Covenant forces attacking it, and eventually go near the ring's control room to attack some more Flood forms and, oh, hey Chief. Eventually, after defeating some famous Flood Juggernaut forms and other forces as well, Fireteam Raven and the UNSC attack the Covenant to distract them from reaching the Autumn's Pillar crash site, and also give Chief some time to blow up the ship to eventually destroy the ring. And just like in CE, Chief does this. The ring explodes, Chief escapes, and all of those on the ring die. Yay, what an uplifting story. Honestly, they should have called this game Halo Fireteam Raven, a Halo story. The story and campaign experience was for sure an interesting one. So let's first get into the pros of it. I do like the idea of having a story that takes place during Halo Combat Evolved. It adds to what you're doing in that game and makes every decision you make as Chief in that game feel so much more heavier knowing that lives are being lost. And generally the whole Battle of Installation 04 is an interesting one. It's usually forgotten about since you only play Halo CE, but once again I would highly recommend checking this game out just to explore that faction a little bit more beyond CE. And in general it's just a cool setting for a story, but it does have some limitations. I do love the designs of the Fireteam Raven characters themselves and all of the solid ODST designs in their armor, with little quirks that makes each character different, like how Ramos has heavier armor since, well, he's the heavy weapons boy.
I am heavy weapons guy.
Also, all the things visually look like Halo in this game and also match the time frame of CE as well. Like the Pillar of Autumn looks pretty accurate, the Covenant look good for the most part, and Chief of course has his classic CE armor. Even the introduction of new enemies we didn't see in Halo CE was also cool and also adds to the lore, like seeing Flood Juggernaut forms, which were creatures that were cut from Halo 2, and showing up here is generally an awesome thing. Also seeing other vehicles like the Falcon and Scarab show up was also great as well. Even other references, like most of the time Chief shows up, for the most part are pretty cool moments, and even seeing references like Alpha Base was also pretty great as well. And for the type of story it's trying to tell and the format it's trying to tell it in, it has a nice pace for the most part. Something's always happening which always makes the story good and never makes the game feel stale at all. I also like how the game ends, the light of the Halo ring outside of the machine turning off, symbolizing the destruction of the ring. Pretty cool and neat stuff. Now for the cons of the story. I think for the most part the story that it tells in the arcade are pretty good, but there are limitations. Arcades are not like video games or books where they can have dialogue or fleshed out the story or extended cutscenes to show what's going on. It's usually a very fast, quick introduction and straight to the action. This is done because arcade machines need to grab your attention quick and keep having you pay more to actually continue playing the game. So with this limitation in mind, I wasn't expecting an in-depth story with this game, but I do feel like a more comic version of this or maybe a book adaptation would have helped flesh out Fireteam Raven here a bit. Also, despite most of the references being good for the most part, some do contradict the events of CE as well. Like when the first time we see Chief in this game, which in the original game is the classic cutscene of Chief throwing that Marine into the pod. As we can see in this, we assume that Chief is alone, but according to this game's events, Raven was right in front of the hallway watching Chief throw the Marine in. This doesn't make any sense because Chief, I'm sure, would have noticed the ODSTs and reacted as such. And the cutscene itself shows an empty hallway for the most part. I think that all this could have been fixed if maybe the ODSTs saw the events from like a closed door through some glass instead of just right there just seeing it. Overall, the other times that Chief shows up are mostly fine for the most part. I especially love the time in the final battle where we actually get to see Chief fly the Banshee to the Autumn. And I think overall the biggest issue with the story is that nothing really significant happens to you in it. You just fight a lot of enemies, buy time for other characters, and overall it just feels like so much more of an in-depth story could have been told, and it just wasn't told here. Overall, the campaign is still pretty decent, something maybe someone new to Halo may not get, but someone a casual fan may think is pretty decent, but overall nothing great, but nothing horrible either, just a story full of meh. Now for the critical factor of the review, how does a Halo arcade cabinet actually play? Well, surprisingly for the most part, it plays pretty solid and actually fun at times. First, let's look at the design of the machine. The one that I played in was only a 2-player available, but others can be 4-player as well. I love the outside of the machine with having a Halo ring on the outside wrapping around the cabinet, creating a very different looking machine compared to others around it, immediately establishing to everyone around that this is a Halo game. And also love the title card on the top that lights up showing the Chief and Fireteam Raven. Maybe having Chief as the headlining figure was a bit misleading, but hey, you gotta grab the attention somehow. The other sides of the machine show nice artwork of the ODSTs, and inside the machine we actually get some pretty cool military style fonts. The screens and the guns that we also get to use in the cabinet are also all pretty cool. The guns themselves have easy buttons on it to reload and nice lights to move when you actually are shooting in the game. And overall visually I think the cabinet looks pretty good for the most part. Now for the gameplay itself, I would say that Fireteam Raven plays like a lot of other on-rail arcade shooters. The game will be at a fast pace, take you to areas and kill enemies using the weapons you are given. Like a lot of standard video games, you can use them, reload them, and also use grenades to kill enemies as well. And for the most part, the gameplay and shooting are fun. The shooting weapons at the enemies also feels pretty good, especially when your weapon vibrates when you shoot them. One thing I noticed too is that the enemies are also very easy to kill in the games, while in this time around they're actually harder. Most enemies take longer to kill this time around, and while some vehicles like Wraiths are easier to take down, this is a good thing and a bad thing with the gameplay, as it does make more of a fun challenge to take on, but also can be kind of annoying. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know about y'all, but wasting a full mag on a grunt is a bit much, don't you think?
Think about that. That's just dumb.
Still though, overall the gameplay is pretty good, and I think the game is for the most part a pretty fun on-rail shooter. I also do like how you get to switch weapons at a nice healthy rate throughout the game, and I would say that the only big issue with the gameplay is that there's really not much more than just a basic on-rail shooter here. Nothing really makes this game stand out to other on-rail shooters, and I wish that there was something in this game that would make the gameplay stand out compared to other machines. Like maybe a more sophisticated controller scheme or more complicated boss battles. Still though, at the end of the day, overall the gameplay is solid, but just like I said before, it lacks innovation. Overall, Halo Fireteam Raven was a good attempt to adapt Halo to a brand new medium, and it did so with some good results. The gameplay is on par and good for an arcade machine. The setting and story was a decent attempt to expand on a classic Halo game that started it all, and many other cool things as well. But the arcade machine suffers from a lack of innovation, and also some inconsistencies with the story it's trying to take place in, and also the lack of real depth and meaning to any of the events of the story. Now the characters of Fireteam Raven would eventually also appear in Halo MCC with their own update, which was just overall amazing to see. And it's really great to see something like that just embraced in a medium by Halo fans alike. Still though, at the end of the day, Halo Fireteam Raven is a decent time at the arcade, but nothing that would make a casual or Halo fan go crazy nuts for. So overall, that was Halo Fireteam Raven. If you liked the video, please subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.